Welcome back to Next Generation. In today's video, we've been inspired by the accumulating book collection, I guess really recipe book collection, but today we're gonna be making a beautiful book display.
Yes. So all of our recipe books we keep in a cabinet, tucked away. Sometimes we forget about them.
All the time.
And they're so good. We discovered them the other day and we've been nonstop cooking the recipes. So I want them out on display so we remember them, cook the things that are in them, and they're beautiful, so why not have it as decoration? So I was looking at little bookshelf display situations online and I didn't like any of them. So when that happens and there's an idea in my mind of exactly what I want and I can't find it, we make it.
DIY style.
It's super inexpensive. I think it was about $10 for all of the supplies.
It was actually.
So extremely achievable and no tools are needed.
Yeah.
We will be using, I think, just one tool, but we're gonna have a way to improvise so that everyone can do this. Recipe books, reading books, child books, whatever it might be, you can use this display. You can make multiple of them and stack them on your wall.
That's a good idea.
Get creative.
It's super cheap too, so no excuses. All right guys, so materials, very simple for this DIY, especially if you decide to not use power tools. We've got this beautiful 1x6, only 4 feet long, because that's all you need for this DIY. And then 1x3, ooh, very nice, very nice. I'll tell you why you need this
How
shortly.
long?
This one's 6 feet long.
But you don't need it that long.
They didn't have the 4 foot, so we had to improvise. But you could get a 4 foot one, and you'd be okay.
And the last thing is this 1/2-inch dowel. It is 36 inches long. I think they come shorter. They also come longer, so depending what size book holder you make will depend on the size of this. But originally I did, just so you guys know, in case you want to change up the look of yours, I wanted to do a copper pipe. Because how cool would a copper pipe look?
Yeah,
and
that
you
would have been really
paint
cool.
your bookshelf like a black color and have the copper. It would look amazing, but Rich crushed my dreams with the reality of it. And
look, let me tell you, when I was thinking, I did a little research too, I could be wrong, okay? Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But what I found, and what I know from working with copper when I used to work in the field, copper oxidizes, okay? Which means that it rusts over time, finger oils and things like that will help it oxidize, and it's not good, especially if you're gonna have it leaning against, say, a white book.
which we will.
You're gonna end up with copper debris. It either turns greenish or it tarnishes a little bit. That rubs off of copper really easy, and it's gonna end up on your book, and you're gonna end up with this tarnished look across all of your books.
So we decided to go with an oak dowel just because it's a beautiful wood color.
It's got a nice wood grain to it.
Yes,
I like
the
it.
wood grain is beautiful. They also have a less expensive option. Not like this is expensive, I think it was like $3.
Yeah.
But they have one that's $1, same size, but I think it's poplar.
It's the same type of wood you have here.
Yes,
the
it's a
white
cheaper wood. So you can either, we're planning to keep it wood color, so I wanted a really nice wood for this, but if you want to spray paint it, I was even considering getting the lesser expensive option and spray painting it the copper color so it could look like the copper pipe, but
you really wanted the copper.
I did. So we're just gonna go with this oak dowel and call it a day. And again, it's 1/2-inch.
Nice.
And that's all you're gonna need.
We do need some sort of adhesion.
Oh.
Or some sort of power tool to drill a hole. But if you're not using power tools, you only need glue. And I do recommend getting some sort of clamps to help that wood stay nice and tight when you apply the glue. But it's optional. You can stand there and hold it until it dries. It's up to you. And I do recommend liquid nails. I didn't specify the glue, but I would use liquid nails in this case.
We may also use a nail gun just to secure everything while it dries. But if you don't want to use a power tool, you can always just clamp it all together so that it dries super tight. And then if you want to paint, stain, seal any of this, you'll need that as well. We're gonna paint just the book holder, but not the dowel. So I'm either gonna use regular paint or spray paint, haven't decided yet. But you'll need that if you want to paint it. And one other thing, if you did wanna go with the oak dowel and you just wanna use oak for the entire book holder and not stain or paint it,
really nice.
then you can get these boards in oak as well. They're a little bit more expensive, of course, because it's a beautiful wood. But since we're gonna be painting ours, we just went with the cheaper option. because you're not gonna tell.
It was tempting though, that oak looks really nice. All right guys, we're ready to build this beautiful bookshelf, book display, call it what you want. It's gonna hold some books. We're gonna figure out how many books we wanna put on our bookshelf, and then that's gonna be the length of our bookshelf. So for us, 20 inches is what's gonna hold the amount of books that we wanna fit. It fits the space perfectly. So the cool thing is we're measuring the length for the back piece of the bookshelf, but also this is gonna be the bottom support as well. So you can cut both your 1x6 into 20 inches, and you can cut your 1x3 into 20 inches.
And if you don't have a saw at home, we're using a miter saw. You can also use a hand saw, and they have a miter box, so you can get a perfectly straight cut. But if you don't have any saws at home, you can get your wood cut at the hardware store. We recommend just bringing in your measurements when you go to purchase your wood, and they will cut it for you for free.
Good tip. All right, so we also need some sides to the bookshelf. So the back is 6 inches. We're gonna measure this out next to the book before we actually make our cuts.
So we'll need 2 of those for either side, and we'll be back. So now we're gonna go ahead and paint our boards before we assemble, just to make life easier.
Yes.
And before you paint, you may have to do like a light sand, very light, if your saw is not super sharp, which ours isn't. So we have some splinters, I like to call them, poking out of our boards where we cut it. So I'm just gonna really lightly sand over that just so it's smooth, and then we'll go ahead and paint.
So if you're deciding not to use power tools, for this step, you're gonna skip it. All right, we're gonna take our sideboards and we're gonna drill a hole in both sides. Actually not a hole, we're gonna drill a hole, but not all the way through. That's what it is, all right? So.
And how big is this hole? Because our dowel is 1/2 inch.
Then we want it as close to 1/2 inch as we can. Think of it as one of those curtain rods where you pop it into little holes. That's kind of what we're doing here.
Exactly.
Except it's not retractable, so it's gonna really just fit in place. We're gonna drill a semi hole on both sides of that 1x3, and this is gonna leave some room for that dowel to sit in. So if you're not using power tools, we're gonna cut our dowel 1 inch shorter than the length of the shelf.
Yep. So it's 20 inches, so we would cut our dowel at 19 inches.
Yep. But we're using power tools. So we're gonna cut our dowel at 1/2 inch longer than the 20 inches. So we're gonna cut it at 20.5 inches.
So here's a little tip for what I like to do when it comes to paint. I like getting paint samples because you can get any color that you want. So I'll be using White Dove. It's like the perfect creamy white. And you can also choose your finish. So I got satin, but you can get eggshell, glossy, matte, whatever finish you would like, and inexpensive. So boom, tip of the day.
So once your paint or your stain is completely dry, we're gonna go ahead and assemble. Exciting step here. The first thing we wanna do is attach the bottom board to the back board. So we're gonna run liquid nails along the bottom board, and then we're gonna press the top board down on top of there and either clamp it in place, nail it in place, or sit there and hold it in place if you don't have any clamps.
Next up, we're gonna attach one side using the same steps. Liquid nails, nail gun. Why did we only attach one side? I would be wondering the same thing. That's because we're gonna add our dowel in place before we attach the other side, because it's cut in the perfect length to fit inside of these two sides, side, side, side.
Side, side.
So we're gonna add a little dot of liquid nails on the end of the dowel and put it up against the sideboard, and then attach our other sideboard so that the dowel is sitting inside. If you did not make the little holes like we did, then you would just add liquid nails to your dowel and put it in place like that. And I would put something that's really heavy on both sides to hold everything in place really tightly if you don't have clamps, because you don't want your dowel slipping or one side slipping and then it dries uneven. So it's time to hang it on the wall and put our books in.
I'm excited too. We need to find some studs.
Yes.
Which
Find studs or use anchors to hang this on the wall. We're gonna be using just some screws and screw directly through the holder just because the books will be covering it. But you can also use a D-ring or a hook on the back. You can also caulk your nail holes so that you don't see them and everything's nice and smooth. We forgot to do this, so I'm doing it now, but you should do this before you sand and paint the boards so that it's all nice and seamless. But this did help a lot because the holes were driving me crazy.
Y'all,
I love it.
I can grab a recipe book and just start cooking right
I'm so
there.
excited. I'm so inspired. Even make it obviously longer so you can grow into it with more books if you would like. But I think it's the perfect size, especially because you don't want to be overwhelmed with too many books. You can even switch them out. So if you have lots of recipe books, maybe just put a few out and then the next week switch them out.
Change it up.
So you can always have new recipes and you're not just using the same ones.
So I challenge you this year to start cooking outside the box like we're gonna do, because it's a lot of fun.
Hope you loved it, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video.
See ya. Bye guys.